Welcome to Be Real. This is a podcast that's for people who are tired of hearing all the garbage out there, tired of the Instagram posts about people being fake. It's time to get real with yourself and stop feeling like an imposter. I'm your host, Vikram Deol, and today that's exactly what we're going to do. So stay tuned, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your friends. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week of Be Real. I am your host, Coach Vikram Deol, and today I am going to give some lessons from a billionaire. I have, as many of you guys know, I have a rich dad and I have a poor dad. I love both of them dearly. My rich dad is the one that gives me life lessons and financial advice. My poor dad is not by any stretch of the imagination poor, but he is more on the work for money versus my rich dad who believes in having your money make you lots and lots of money. So I had an opportunity to visit with him yesterday. He happened to be in Miami and he messaged me randomly while he was here. And I said, oh my gosh, meet up. And so we did, and it was awesome. And while we did that, I had some free time with him where there was nobody else around. And I was able to ask him some deep questions, kind of like if he was here on the podcast. However, he was not. He was at a restaurant while his wife and family were doing their thing. Him and I slipped off to the other part of the restaurant and we had a conversation. The one thing I'll say is that when you have opportunities in front of you, even if you're tired, even if it's late, even if it's a challenge to make it happen, if you have opportunities to be around certain types of people, please, 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 please take those opportunities. You guys remember, opportunities knock all the time. The thing is that we as humans do not take those opportunities for granted. So if the opportunity is there, please take it. Don't forget, you guys, like, subscribe, hit the share button. Tell your friends about this if you're getting value. We don't get paid for these things. We spend a lot of time and money. If you asked my team if we should continue doing the podcast, sometimes they'd be like, we love the content, we love the people, but it is a huge, huge commitment. And the way you can show some social digital currency is by sharing the content, right? Sharing this podcast with other people, telling them about it if you're getting value out of it, because we do put a lot of effort into making this a thing that is very valuable to you. The reason why I want to share the messages from my rich dad is because yesterday him and I got to go pretty deep. And we got to talk about some things that he doesn't probably share too often with other people. He's a very private man, as many very successful people are. And the questions I asked him yesterday were about his life, right? A lot of times as successful people go, they share some stories, but they want to know about what you're doing. They want to see how they can have value in your life. But yesterday I asked him some questions. And one of the questions I asked him was, would you change anything in your life? Right? When you change anything in your life. And I know a lot of people that say, oh my God, if I could change this, if I could change that, if only I could have gone back when I was younger, knowing what I know today. Well, if you knew all that stuff, you wouldn't have made the mistakes and you wouldn't be the person you are today. And so after a super long pause, I mean, he probably thought about this for a good 20 or 30 seconds, and you could see him bouncing through his life like with his eyes. It was pretty awesome because you could see he was living through the experiences that were tough, the experiences that some of us might say, oh my gosh, I wish we didn't have to go through that. And he said, no, I would not change those situations. I would not change those circumstances. I would not change what I went through, because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be who I am today. He said that because of the situations in his life, he became a better man. He knew how to deal with people more appropriately. He knew how to understand the value of hard work, but he knew that he also didn't want to work hard his whole life. Now, don't get me wrong. The man works 6-7 days a week. He's up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He goes to bed at 9-10 o'clock at night, and he is working all day, all night. But it's not work to him because he's doing what he loves. You see, that's the difference. A lot of people work a 40-hour week and they're exhausted because they hate what they do. When you do what you love, you don't actually work. And so he says, I remember a lot of times like working on the farm. He said, I knew I didn't want to work on a farm. I hated it. He said, but I also hated working for my boss. And I knew I didn't want to do that my whole life. I knew that there had to be more out there. And so when he quit his job, his family was like, what are you doing, son? This is crazy. You got the education to get the job. Why would you quit? And he knew that in his heart, that he couldn't work for people. He had to do his own thing because when you work for somebody and you don't love what you do, you're always working. It's such a stressor. But when you do what you love, it's not work. It's just, I get to go do what I love, right? If you love walking and your job was to walk all day, it would become enjoyable. So he said the first thing he knew is that he had to find the thing that he loved to do. And this for him happened to be stuff in real estate, right? He also knew that he hated being poor, right? So as he's going through this, he's having these dilemmas in life. One dilemma is, I hate being poor. The other dilemma is, I hate working for certain people. Okay, so how do I make my money then? Right. So he had to do a lot of his own research and he had to do a lot of looking. And he basically said, I just copied the people that I saw doing what I wanted to do. And I just made that happen. The second thing I asked him, I said, tell me how you got to where you're at in life. We grew up in an Indian society and you grew up when things like, marrying outside of your culture, or you grew up in a time where not doing what your parents told you to do wasn't something that people sought to do. Like even still today, I talk to people and they're still doing what their mom and dad wanted them to do because they don't want to hurt their parents' feelings. I said, okay, that's interesting. So I asked my rich dad, I said, so tell me a little bit more about what that means. He said, well, I was a free thinker. I knew that if I wasn't happy inside, how could I make my mom and dad happy? He said, and I knew that I was going to make choices that they might not approve of. I wasn't going to disrespect them, but I was going to live my life. Think about that. I wasn't going to disrespect them, but I was going to live my life, because if I couldn't make myself happy, how could I make others happy? As a free thinker, he also thought, if I can raise myself up, I can bring my sister with me. I can bring my uncle with me. I can bring my brothers with me, right? I can bring my family with me. I can bring their kids along with me. If I change how I live my life, I can bring other people up with me. So he knew that he wasn't just doing this for himself. He knew he was doing this for a generation, multiple generations. Now, he never expected to be as successful as he was, but he also knew that he didn't want to bring people into this world and not be able to take care of them. He said, I saw how people raised their kids in America, and at 18, 19, they kicked him out, or they would tell their kids, no, 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 no. He said, I didn't ever want to tell my kids no because of money. He said, maybe there was a lesson for them to learn and we had to say no, but I didn't want to tell them no because of money. So I knew that I had to make a lot of it, right? So that takes us to number 3. He says, one of my third biggest takeaways in life is you have to do what you love, right? We talked about that earlier, but he says, you have to do what you love. For me, ladies and gentlemen, this is something that hit home really hard, because I thought in order to be successful, I had to sell lots of real estate, buy rentals, and be just like him, right? Beat myself up when I would think about, oh my gosh, you're out there drinking and partying and, doing all this crazy stuff. What would he think? Even though he has a son that was doing some fun things, right? Going out to the clubs and partying, right? I always said, oh no, I have to be different. I would sit at home and I would beat myself up. When I got out of real estate, I just beat myself up. Oh my God, Vikram, you're never going to make it financially if you don't get back into real estate, was my thought for a long time. And then I started doing other things, and I started finding ways to buy rental properties. I started finding other ways to invest in cryptocurrencies. I started finding ways to grow my other businesses. And I was like, wait a minute. Wow, this is insane. Like, I'm making more money now and I'm doing more investments long-term now than when I was making 7 figures. Like, how is this working? It's just the mindset, right? The universe will provide with you. So when you do what you love, things just start to work for you, right? And when you find your purpose in life, that's one of the things that my rich dad said yesterday. He says, I had to find my purpose. He said, I knew working for other people wasn't my purpose in life. I knew it wasn't going to bring me the happiness I wanted. He said, so I had to figure out how I wanted to make my garden. I had an opportunity to plant and sow the garden that I wanted. And I went out and I did it, and I saw real estate, and I saw people making a lot of money there, and I saw people being able to work when they want. He said, because I cared about being at home when my kids were at home. He said, I knew at one point I wanted to be around when my grandkids were around. I didn't want to have to be in an office being told when to go places. He says, I came here to watch my son play hockey, right? I left for 3 days, and I have the ability to do that. If my son books a Disney cruise for 2 weeks and we take the whole family, right, I can afford to pay for all of my family to go on a Disney cruise. And, it'd be sometimes 40 or 50 people. And a Disney cruise, I've never been on one, but I believe they're relatively on the more expensive side for cruises. He says, I can leave the office for 2-3 weeks at a time now. and I have the ability to be free. I have the ability to set my grandkids up so that when they're 18, they're financially set for life. But it was my responsibility to teach my children, to hopefully teach them how to be responsible adults in this world that we live in. He said, but I do what I love and I have the flexibility because I'm able to do that. I built it in because I found my purpose in life, right? He said, I'm good at one thing. My son's good at a lot of other things, but I'm good at one thing, and that's real estate. Like, interesting. He doesn't go out and dab in politics. He doesn't care. He doesn't dab in construction. He's like, that's not my thing. He's like, if my kids want to do it, I'll learn about it and I'll bring in a team to help me, but that's not my thing. The fourth thing he said, right? Hey, if you're getting comments, if you're getting value, please leave a comment, right? Please subscribe to the channel. Please give me a review on this. Please share this with at least one friend, if not three friends. Please help me grow the channel. I would appreciate it immensely. I don't ask you guys for a lot on this podcast. We're on episode almost 50, which is amazing. And we have some really amazing guests lined up. I'm so excited for the next few weeks. But if you could show some digital currency and share this with some friends and give a like and or a comment or a subscribe, depending on where you're at, and a review, it would help me a lot. Number 4, he said, never touch the principal. He says, when you want to get to where you want to go in life, you have to invest, right? Not just in yourself, but you have to buy cash flow, right? You got to invest in things that give you cash flow, but you never take the principal out. So if you're making $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month, you can spend the $10,000, but you never take the money out. You always reinvest your principal, right? You always keep reinvesting the principal. So you figure out how much money you want to make a month, and then you keep the principal in there and you take off the cream from the top. He says, you never, ever touch your egg. You only take from the top. And if you take from the top, you can spend all the money you want. He says, every month you can go broke. Doesn't matter, because the next month you're going to keep getting that money. You're going to keep getting that money. You're going to keep getting that money. He said, so I've always taught my kids, never touch the principal. And his 5th tip that he gave yesterday, the 5th question I asked him yesterday was, what is his one greatest skill that has helped him become so incredibly successful, not just with his business, but his family, his wife, his children, right? All of his children have different personalities, probably like all of us in this world. We all have different personalities, right? His wife is different than his kids in certain ways. In certain ways, obviously, they have similarities. He has different types of employees, over 1,000 employees now, right? His CFO is different than the person that goes and looks at his properties, and the person that does his stocks, right? The person that does this investment and that, right? So many different personalities. His sister's personality is different, right? His kids are different. And he says, I learned at a young age how to deal with different people. He says, I learned how to keep my cool after, he had some blowups, and as we all do when we're young. Some people still do when they're old. And don't get me wrong, he is an intense individual, right? He is an intense man. But he said, my greatest skill is my ability to work with all types of people. Wild. His greatest skill is his ability to work with all types of people. Think about that. He's talking about emotional intelligence, ladies and gentlemen. He's talking about emotional intelligence. Now, he doesn't call it EQ 2.0, right? He doesn't use all the fancy new terms out there, but he learned that EQ was probably as important, if not more important than IQ, because the EQ let him build his team. And as we were talking about it, he talked about all of the different people on his team, how they helped him with this and how they helped him with that. And now he gets to return the favor, right? He says his most important thing that he learned in life, he would say in his success in life, was his ability to work with other people, his EQ, not his IQ, not how smart he was, his EQ. Like, that is something that we really should stop and look at, that somebody at the levels of success that a lot of us aspire to be, not everybody wants to be a multi, 100 million or billionaire. However, if you aspire to even have a 10 or 15 or $20 million net worth, you're going to have to deal with a lot of people. And having the EQ around that is so important. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So these are some of the tips that I took away from my rich dad yesterday. I really, 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 really hope that you listen to these and listen to this again and take notes, because it's not every day that we are fortunate enough to be around somebody who's created such an enormous amount of success and is happy, right? Has the kids around the family, right? Has the grandkids around the family, right? Gets excited that his kids show up to the office to work, right? Gets excited that he gets to be in an argument with his kid because that means his son is growing and one day will take over the company, right? He is excited about being challenged by his younger generation because it makes him a better person. He doesn't get intimidated by it. He gets excited by it. Think about the mindset behind that. How many of us are the exact opposite? When somebody challenges us, our ego kicks in. We want to prove how right we are. Instead of saying, hey, I hope the other person's right because that means they've grown. That means we help them grow. Like, how cool is that? That you get to be part of somebody else's growth. Like, what if your mindset was around that? What if your mindset was around doing the things you love? Maybe you can't jump into it right away because you have obligations, right? And it'd be irresponsible to, go out and start your entrepreneurial journey while you have family that needs you to provide for them, but you stay up late and you create your side hustle. And eventually your side hustle becomes your life, and you can get rid of the job that you hate. Or maybe you can develop within the job. Maybe you love what you do already, but you want to do it differently. And you create a different style within your company, and you have your own business almost within the company you work for. What if? So you don't have to live a perfect life, ladies and gentlemen, is what he was talking about, but you have to live a life full of passion. You don't just wake up and have a successful life. You got to put the work in, right? You got to put the work in. If you think about a garden, it was just dirt one day, and in a short period of time later, there's flowers blooming, right? There's a crop growing food to eat. It's providing shade so you could sit under the tree on a warm day and read a book or take a nap, right? One day, that piece of dirt is your life, right? You got to have the vision. And just like a piece of dirt, you got to be willing to work the soil. You got to be willing to love on it. You got to be willing to be patient. You got to be willing to prune. And then you got to be willing to harvest and do it all over again. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Again, I'm going to ask for you guys to do me a huge favor. I'm going to ask for you guys to leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel, share this with a few people, and leave a review on your favorite station that you listen to podcasts. You guys, I'm Vikram Deol. I am a coach. I am an entrepreneur. I am here to help and serve. If you'd like to get a couple of minutes on my calendar to talk about how we can connect and collaborate and do amazing things together, just message us on Instagram, Coach Vikram Deol, and my team or I will message you back, and we can connect and we can talk and we can see how we can make the world better, and we can just go out and be amazing, because you, my friend, are legendary. You are amazing. You have a beautiful heart, and you are connected to me and to everybody. So with that, I'll talk to y'all next week with another amazing interview and an amazing guest.
Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of Be Real. It's truly a pleasure to serve. I encourage you to like this, comment on this, share this with a friend or a loved one, because every day that we do that, we're just keeping it real. As always, be real, everybody.